Welcome to the Diversity Connector podcast, where we explore the rich tapestry of human experiences. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and together as we dive into conversations that bridge cultures, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the unique perspectives each of us brings to the table. Each episode is a journey through stories and insights from a kaleidoscope of voices, each sharing their colorful narrative. Whether you're at home, on the go, or just anywhere in between, you're now part of a community that values understanding, inclusivity, and the beauty of diversity. So plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's connect through the power of our shared stories. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Connector podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating young woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Thank you, Gertrude. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Akua Appiah Lindberg. I'm based in Berlin, Germany. And yeah, now I tell a little bit of my story. I have to make sure I do a good summary. So I'm originally from Ghana. I was born in Nairobi, Kenya, but I don't know much of it. I had my formative years in the USA. So my father was a lecturer. I traveled quite a bit. So as I was a young girl going to school, I started in USA, and then we moved to Ghana shortly, and then we lived a year in Nigeria, and then the rest of my life, most of it, I pretty much spent in Ghana. I did my undergrad in Ghana. I worked as a geologist for some years. I studied geological engineering, worked for the government of Ghana, and that's what brought me to Germany. So we did a lot of collaboration with geologists also from Germany, and through that, I did a short course, which was sort of like in German, they call something like learning on the job. So something to add on to what you already know. So I came to Berlin in 2005 to do a course on GIS, Geographic Information Systems. That was my first introduction to the whole Germany journey. So after that, I did a master's in public management because I worked for a public organization, although I was a geologist, and that's the second time. That's what brought me to Germany, where I met my husband, who is German. So I spent a few more years in Germany, but my heart was in Ghana. So we moved to Ghana to spend some years there together. We have 3 beautiful daughters together, some born here in Berlin, others in Ghana. And about 6 to 7 years ago, we decided to move to be closer to his parents, lived a few years in Hamburg, and then we came to base ourselves in Berlin. So I can say a little bit about what I've been doing professionally. So you know already I did this geological engineering, but when I came to Germany, I realized it was really hard to transfer my skills. I had learned so far up to that time in my life almost everything in English, and the main language in Germany is German. I tried to see what can I use my skills, because I've never dreamt of being a housewife, and I'm just not the kind of person who can just be confined to just one place, one home. I love my children, I love my home, but I always needed to do something extra. So I had to really think, and as you can tell, if I was already working and had my degrees already in 2005, I was not that young when I came back to Germany and had to sort of reconstruct my whole life all over again. And it was quite challenging. I first tried to say, okay, all that I knew already in English, I want to transfer those skills into German. So I tried to do some other courses to the same things that I had done before to just get them certification on them in German. But when it comes to my experience, it was still not a German experience. It was experience coming from Africa, and it was not always really considered. And at some point, I realized, okay, I have to reinvent the whole wheel. Well, in between, actually, as I waited before I went back to Ghana, I decided to be an English teacher, because then that's one thing that you can do only in English. So I got a certificate for teaching adults English from Cambridge, and I did that for a while before we went back to Ghana. But when we came back to Germany, I was like, no, I want to do something a little bit more challenging. And it was also not so easy to get jobs as an English teacher. As an African, most people did not really think that you were the one to teach English. You should be from Australia or America or Britain. So so I decided, okay, let me look at things where they don't really look at your CV, what you've done before, but something where you can learn on the job and you can start afresh. So this was what I sought to do, and I saw that many off job offers that were looking for something where you could learn on the job were referring to software engineering. And then what really encouraged me is, like, I wanted to get a German driver's license, and my Ghanaian driver's license was not transferable. So I had to do everything all over. And I realized, like, I'm not my brain was still as sharp as it used to be, because I was always getting no errors whenever I did the theory test. So I was like, okay, then I can do something more challenging. So when I saw the software engineering, I thought, okay, it's not bad. I can go into it. So then I started my journey to find out, how can I get into this. I tried, at that time I lived in Hamburg. I tried some boot camps, but they were all done in German. And I think I could speak quite a good amount of German, but every time I tried, they would say I had to have the highest level, C1, which is the level you need to go to the university. And I was determined at that point that I could converse in German, and I would never get my German up to a certain standard that it would be my mother tongue. So I was not going to spend any more time just working on German, but I had to get forward in some kind of career. So I opted to rather come and do the boot camp in Berlin, where I could do it also in English. So at this time, I had three little girls. I think my eldest was around 6, and my youngest was possibly less than 2 years, or just about 2 years. And it was really a challenge. But I left my girls and came for a 9-week boot camp. And that's where the journey began into this interesting career that I have, and which I've been on this journey since. Actually, the day that I finished my boot camp was the day the lockdown started in Germany, and we went into lockdown season, and I became full-time wife, full-time teacher, full-time software engineer looking for a first job. And it was a crazy journey. And some young ladies believed in me. They had a new, fresh idea and asked me to work with them to develop this idea. And that was the first job I had in software engineering. And since 2020, 2020, around April, I've been working in this field.
Wow, what a journey. It's interesting how you came from the other side of the world and had to literally reinvent yourself in Germany, and now working in a tech industry, which is very, very male dominated, as a minority. It must be quite a difficult and interesting experience at the same time.
Yeah.
So, your journey from analyzing geographic and geological data to become a software developer is fascinating. Can you share how your diverse background influenced your approach to software development, especially in terms of creating inclusive and accessible technology?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yes, I think it has helped in all my experiences, but I think where I work currently, it's much better because like we are working for health, and health affects everybody, and sometimes I can draw the attention of program managers to certain kinds of people who they might not be really considering as a very important group of people. So, for instance, our product is mainly looking at keeping yourself healthy, and most of the time the mindset is that it's these people who are very athletic and are also seeking to maintain certain standard of their health or whatever. But I also always draw the attention to the fact that perimenopausal women are people who are very, very keen on keeping their health, because things that they have not had to take care of for years ahead of time have now become very serious things, and they have to take care really of their health. So this is one simple example I could give.
Amazing. So, through your career in technology, how have you seen diversity evolve within the teams that you've worked with? And what impact has it had on the projects that you've developed, particularly in terms of creativity and problem solving?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I mean, I don't have so many years in this field, but still, most of the places I have worked, we have had really diverse people, but not necessarily in the engineering team. So I can say that there have been various experiences, and a lot of it it's very important who is leading. So leadership has been one key issue. And I've seen where leaders have leadership, where I mean like the technical leaders plus the HR together have fought for more diversity. And a lot of times when we talk of diversity in Germany, it's mainly focusing on gender diversity. But the whole thing of ethnical diversity is not so strongly talked about here. But I believe strongly that even if it's not something that's focused on, if the HR and the technical leadership see it as important, it affects very much what goes on, because there are some teams you go into and most of the people are the same. But if leadership tries to shape them to understand that it's necessary to have people with different views, and leadership also um, raises the voices of these people with different views, I realized that also those who always thought, okay, this was normal, their whole mindset of what normal is challenged. Sometimes it's a bit uncomfortable for everyone. Change is uncomfortable, but with time, I've seen that they warm up to it. So, for instance, I've had colleagues who, when I entered the team, they didn't even want to talk to you or smile at you, but with persistence, it's not because they are unfriendly, but yeah, in the past, this career really attracted introverts and people who just wanted to deal with their computer and no human beings. But now they've realized they just can't survive because we're also here. We want to deal with both the computers and the human beings, and persistently smile and try to make small talk. And at some point, I realized, like, there was one colleague that after like 6 months, I realized that you enter a meeting with him and he talks. He actually talks. You know, in the beginning, he would just be totally silent and never interact. But yeah, I think that all these things, but also just talking, makes him share more what's going on in his mind, and you share more what's going on in your mind. And I think that really affects the kind of tech we build.
That's awesome. So you're preparing to support a project and introducing children from underrepresented communities to technology.
Mhm.
What motivated you to focus on this initiative? And how do you believe it will impact the future diversity of the tech industry in Germany?
So the thing is, like, I always give this example. Like, a lot of the people I work with, they've grown up with computers, like all kinds of devices. And even my children, there are certain things that I had to learn since 2020 that they already know without even being in this industry.
Yes.
And so it's so important, that people who are not usually exposed to tech, um, so early, get exposed to it, because this already is, if people don't see something as an option, then they're never going to choose it. So people, I already was in a field, like I was in this field of geology, and before I went into tech, I went to the school to talk about this, and I saw how much the girls were so keen to see that I was doing something like that, because they would see in the pictures that I would be maybe the only girl, the only lady, or whatever. And then there were people, so many mothers came to me and like, yeah, my daughter really enjoyed the talk, just because of representation. And so it's so important that kids from a young age can see, okay, there's somebody who looks like me also doing this.
Yeah.
And it's something that is doable. So at first, when I was coding, my daughter would always say, "Oh, this looks like it's really crazy and hard. I don't think I'll ever gonna do it." Last week, she asked me, "Mom, can you teach me how to code?" So exposure is so important. And if we really want to tackle this issue of diversity, we have to catch them young before they grow.
I love that. So, as a software engineer and a passionate speaker, what are the biggest challenges that you faced in advocating for diversity within tech? And what opportunities do you see for improvement?
I think the biggest challenge, I would say, is when people want to stay in their comfort zone. And I think one of the maybe even bigger challenges is when people just want to tick boxes.
Mm.
So they want to do the D, they don't want to do the I, the E, or now we have even a B.
Yes.
So that's the problem. So I mean, to just explain it, so diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging, and people want to have different colors, different faces, different backgrounds, but do these people feel included when they are there?
Yes. That's absolutely crucial. The inclusion part and then the belonging. It's like I read a quote the other day that it's like being invited to the dance and nobody asks you to dance
Mm,
or even
exactly.
plays the music that you would like to dance to in the first place.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about inclusive design now.
Mhm.
Given your expertise in React and Node and other technologies, can you discuss a project where you prioritize accessibility and inclusivity in the design and development process? And how do you ensure the final product was accessible to a diverse user base?
Okay, so for instance, this project that I told you, my first job in tech, I was actually the CTO, which I never talk about, because I found it so crazy. Like I'm just trying to start now, and I get this big title. So there I had a lot of power to influence things, and the project was actually to bring young people into homes of older people who had a lot of space but were lonely, and
Yes.
could rent these spaces for these younger people on a smaller, on a less, less than the market price, so that they would have somewhere that's not so expensive to live, but then also there would be sharing between the two generations. And I always alerted the people, because the two other ladies were much younger, and our main clientele would be these older people who were going to give us their support, or their apartments. And so
Right.
there was always this need for us to remember that the young people coming for the apartments are tech savvies, are going to use all these kinds of technology in a certain way, but the older people, not yet. And so one of the first projects they did was to go into old people's homes or into some kind of clubs of old people and just teach them how to use laptops, or teach them, um, yeah, simple things to do, just checking their emails and stuff like that. And whilst doing this, they would introduce the product to them. So on the one hand, we tried to make sure our product was not so overly complicated so that they could assess it, but also to also bridge the gap to give them the training they needed to be able to assess it.
Now, that was a smart move, really smart move. So, mentorship can play a critical role in navigating the tech industry, especially for individuals from underrepresented groups. Can you share a story about a mentor who impacted your career, or how you mentored others to promote diversity in tech?
Yeah, so I can never say my story without mentioning yeah, Thomas Bradford. He was my first CTO. So when I got this job as a CTO, he was in touch with the ladies and told them that if you find yourself a CTO, I will mentor her. And he put in his calendar. At that time, I didn't even know who he was. He put in his calendar every week on Thursday, he spent an hour with me. And I had no idea who I was talking to. And later I got another mentor, and he saw on my LinkedIn that I knew Thomas, and he was like, "You know Tom Bradford?" And I said, "Yes, I know him." Why? So I didn't even know. I like was like, he was such a big shot in tech in Berlin, and I, like this girl who's never written a line of code was being mentored by him, and he believed in me more than maybe I believed in myself. And like I don't know, he ticked all the boxes, the things that you can do to make someone really move from A to B by just believing in them, encouraging them, being there for them. And I always like to tell the story because, of course, as a Black woman, sometimes you think, okay, our biggest challenge, or the people it's so challenged to work with, is maybe a Caucasian man. But this mentor that made so much impact on my life was a Caucasian man. And so I always try to encourage people to be open-minded in seeking mentors, in giving mentorship. We should be open-minded. Yes, minority needs to come in and be at the table, but sometimes the doors will be open to us not by people who look like us, but by from other people. And that's why allyship is so important. We need to have allies.
Yeah, it's interesting. My first job was as a COBOL programmer. And the man who actually got me into this job was a man from our church. So I'd finished high school. I needed to get a job because my dad was ill. And his son was the HR manager for the largest Anglo-British conglomerate in Zimbabwe. So he put my name forward. I went for an aptitude test, and I ended up in technology not by choice, but just because somebody in my church saw my potential. So it's really important to have these kind of people around us to help further our careers. So you express a passion for agile software development. In your experience, how does diversity within agile teams influence the innovative process and the overall success of projects?
Yeah, so if you have an agile team, that means you're not like just having a fixed set of rules, fixed way to do the thing. Here's the box, build it like this, and in 6 months we see each other. But we are every day building upon the process, and we fail fast so that we can regroup and think of another way. And there's no other better way to do that than have diverse mindsets and diverse ideas. So maybe we start off in a certain way that we've always done it that way, and maybe it's run by someone on a higher hierarchy, so to say, like a senior developer or the CTO. And we realize early enough that this might have worked 2 months ago, but it doesn't work today.
Yes.
If you have an agile team, it's so easy for someone else to chip in. Maybe someone not even technical. Maybe the designer thinks, why don't you let us try it this way this time? And the whole idea of agile work is that we are collaborating on a constant basis, on constantly collaborating, and everybody's word is important. And we're not fixing things the way it should be from the very onset. So if there's more diversity in the contributions, and this diversity is also encouraged and accepted and wanted, then it's really fastly iterating the ideas. It doesn't matter where it comes from or who it comes from, and moving on and trying to make the thing work as it works along the way.
I love that. Yeah, you have to be constantly evolving and checking in and getting that feedback to develop robust software.
Yeah.
So, software and algorithms can sometimes reflect or amplify societal biases.
Mhm.
Can you discuss how your background in data acquisition and management has informed your approach to minimalized bias in software development, minimalizing bias?
Yeah. This is really a big one. So for people who have been trying to use AI and chat GTP, and recently I realized, for instance, that we have these, this is not Google Meets, but if you make some hand gestures on Google Meets, you can get some things showing on your screen.
Okay.
And I don't know how it works or what it works, but I think that's why it's so important that we have diverse teams, because if we have anything that we're testing or trying or working on, and there are diverse people in our team, I mean, hopefully we are trying to try it on all these diverse people. So, I mean, even among people of African descent, I'm quite dark skinned. And if you have some AI that cannot take certain tones of skin, I might not be recognized by a car, like an electric car or a car being driven by an AI.
Yes.
And so all these things are important. And the more the data we give into AI is the data that comes out. So if
Yes.
we're putting diverse information in there, there are also all these companies that are doing recruitment by AI. But if
Yes.
AI is trying to sieve CVs in a certain way, it's only going to get intelligent by what it's being given. So if it's always being given the same kind of CV, then it's going to soon recognize others that don't belong as not belonging. So
And so
sometimes,
keeps saying, right?
yes, sometimes people think that when we use computers, then we erase bias, but it's not the case. It can even more inform the bias, or even make it worse, so to say.
It's so interesting because you don't actually realize the impact, just how big the impact can be. Um, wow, I had never looked at it like that.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. So, my last or second to last question for you is, you focused, you've contributed to projects that are focused on societal issues and scientific research. How do you leverage your tech skills to engage with and give back to diverse communities? And why is this important to you?
Hmm. So when I started in tech, there were certain experiences I had never experienced in my life before, and they were things that are so subtle, like microaggressions and behaviors that you knew that this could be something because of who I am, could be because I'm a woman. It could be because I'm Black. But how do you voice that out? Because it's always so subtle, you know.
Yes.
And you also don't want to be someone who is always complaining, you know.
Mm.
So being part of Black in Tech Berlin, which is one of the main organizations or communities that I'm participating in,
Yes.
and I listen to other people's stories. So like when I joined, the second program that I went to was mainly for only women, Black in tech women, and this really, it really gave me so much hope, because I realized like everything that I had been facing, that I thought maybe it's me, maybe I'm the person who is too sensitive or whatever, then all these other Black women come and they are facing almost exactly the same thing. And for me, this really is important, that people don't go crazy thinking that, oh, I'm just an outlier, but actually what you are feeling is right, and
Yeah.
it is wrong what people are doing. But maybe as much as you might have thought it's only you, they also don't, they might have also only met you. That's also another reason why diversity is so important, because if people have met only you as the only person representing a certain group of people, because it's a minority, then they are putting so much on you. But if they have the opportunity to meet one, two, three people, see that, okay, they're all Black, but they're not all the same. Like there are some who are loud, there are some who are quiet, there's some who are everything. Then gradually they will reduce their prejudices, and they will also get used to having minority. Gradually we don't become minority anymore, right? And so that's, for me, it's so important to be in these communities, and to also share my story, just the same as other people's stories inspired me so much and kept me going. And I just wait for the next event on all these communities, because for each event I can absorb so much energy for the next months to come.
I like that. Wow. So, my last question for you is going to look into the future.
Mhm.
Looking ahead, what trends or changes do you anticipate in the tech industry's approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion? And what advice do you have for upcoming developers who want to make a difference in this area?
Yeah. So, what can I say? So the trend is that gradually the workforce in uh, Europe is becoming an older workforce.
Mm,
It's just what is happening, and there's no turning back. So gradually, the workforce of the third world or other parts of the world are coming in here. So whether people like it or not, diversity has come to stay.
mm,
And the more you make it something that you work at and try to overcome, the better your results are gonna be, because the teams are gonna be diverse, whether you like it or not. But are you
mm,
gonna harness this diversity, or is it gonna be a challenge that just brings you down? So
mm,
yeah, this is how I see the future, and I believe strongly that teams have to learn and be curious, ask more questions. If you have a minority, how, in whichever way the person is a minority, ask more questions, ask more about their experiences, ask more about how you can support them. I am really I'm lucky to be in a very supportive team. I just like I don't really feel like changing. Even it would be maybe necessary to change a role in some time to come, but I'm so comfortable because um they are just always eager to know how they can support me. They are respectful, they ask questions, and it's really nice to be in such a team, even if you're a minority, but you know that you are supported by your colleagues and your
mm.
counterparts.
That is awesome. Well, there's a lot to be said for what's supposed to come in the future. And it sounds like you are groundbreaking, supporting in this space, and setting a trend so people can learn to understand who we are as people of African descent in foreign countries. I think it's also part of our responsibility to share our culture, who we are, and bridge that understanding that's missing, that makes people feel uncomfortable with diversity. So thank you so much for your work. Thank you for what you're doing for young people in Germany to get involved in tech at an early age. We can't run away from technology, unfortunately. It is the future. Good thing to know that your kids are already in there and learning well in advance. So thank you so much for this interview.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Diversity Connector is a platform that connects people from diverse backgrounds from all over the world, celebrating and sharing our stories to bridge understanding, share, and celebrate who we are as human beings. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. Thanks again for the interview.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap, everybody, on today's episode of the Diversity Connector podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our vibrant and global conversation. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a tapestry of diverse perspectives. Remember, every story you've heard today is a thread in the larger fabric of our shared humanity. So, as you step back into your world, carry these stories with you and let them inspire you to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity around us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. Do follow us on social media by looking for the Diversity Connector podcast for more updates. Until then, keep connecting, keep listening, and keep celebrating the beauty of diversity. This is the Diversity Connector podcast signing off. Stay curious, stay open, and definitely stay